Welcome back. We are up to our fourth email of our mini series, and today we are going to talk about the Xero's chart of accounts. And what we're going to go through today is Xero's chart of accounts and their templates, adding and changing or editing the accounts and account codes, how to import the chart of accounts, and we've got a little bonus at the end, and you'll see that in the email as well. So let's jump into that now. All right, so we're back in the demo company. It'll be your client file. If we jump into accounting and chart of accounts, we'll see the general Xero setup chart of accounts. So we've got all accounts selected here. We can jump into each individual one. This is the very basic one. Obviously, there's things like cars, they can be added in here as well. We've got our liabilities, so like your wages, your loans, director's drawings, and then we've got equity, which is owner's share capital, retained earnings, etc. The most one you guys will probably be using is expenses and revenue. So your general expenses are all in here. And then we've got our revenue accounts, so our sales accounts, any other revenue, interest income, and then archive is just any accounts that have been archived that are no longer in use. So with Xero's chart of accounts, they also have templates available. If you're setting up, depending on the company structure or business structure, I'll show you where you can go to get those. If you jump into Xero headquarters, if you've got this access, we can then go into practice, chart of accounts. And you can see all of these in here, and you can just copy that. You can copy the template and create another one so you can edit. Otherwise, you export the template. So we'll go into importing the chart of accounts a little bit later. I'm just going to jump back into that demo company. Once it loads, a little bit slow. All right, so that's where you find your chart of accounts. The reason why it's super important that it's set up correctly, things like your GST, if they're GST reporting or not, we need to make sure that these tax rates are pulling through correctly. So if we jump into the expenses and just say it's a GST reporting entity, but all of these have GST free or BAS excluded, it should flag that there is an issue. Now, our next point we're going to jump into is adding and changing accounts. So very simple. If we want to call this office suppliers as a very vague example, we can jump in here and change that name to suppliers and hit save. I'm not going to hit save for this purpose, but that's how we would amend what's currently in there. And to add accounts, now I like to kind of keep it consistent with the number just so it slots in nicely and isn't looking a bit strange all over the place. So just say someone wanted the motor vehicle expenses split out from fuel, insurance, and rego. You might see that. I see that quite a lot. So that's something you might see quite a lot. So we've got motor vehicle expenses. Just say we want to add a fuel one in there. The client's asked to have that split. It's an expense account. Oh, I didn't note the code. 449. So I'd put 450 around about there. Expense account. 450, name, fuel, I put here petrol expenses, and we know that there's GST on that, and then we'd hit save. And what that does is that then creates that little split category under that, and then you could do another one for rego and insurance, tolls and parking, etc. So that's just a very basic example with adding and changing accounts. Now, another really important thing to note is general expenses. Accountants here in Australia really don't like seeing stuff put in that account. So if you're not sure, ask the client. If it's not in this list at all, add an account. I highly recommend adding an account if it's not in the list, depending on the client's industry. Things like if they're in the building industry, in this chart of accounts, that's very basic. There is nothing for things like materials. You would have to create an account for materials as an example. It's just things like that to note with the chart of accounts. It's very basic. It is usable, but add accounts as you need be. Don't use that general expenses account if you cannot find a category. Create one that's used frequently in the future, or even infrequently. If it's something that's once a year, still try to avoid putting it in that general expenses account. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is importing chart of accounts. So if you've just got a brand new client, they don't have any chart of accounts set up. It usually goes through that process in the setup, but the other way around it is here. We can go import. So you can do the same accounting chart of accounts and then import. And we can see here, see whether you're importing from another system, whether you're containing account balances. If you're not sure, you can just tap that one. Now, Xero has chart of accounts, their own CSV file for GST registered or non-GST registered companies. So if we bring that up, I can show you what that looks like once it loads. I'll just expand that. So this is the general chart of accounts. Now, what's really great about this is if you know the industry, just say it's a building industry, you could go in right away and add those extra bits and pieces. Or if they have motor vehicles and they want all of that stuff split out, you could then jump in here and just insert. And just follow what's currently in there. Ooh, it's a bit too many. But you get the point. You can add those things in there. You could add something in here, like just say it is building industry, 430, materials. Oh, my keyboard's going crazy. And you just got to make sure with little errors in that it won't import if there's funny things in there. So, I mean, it'll come up with that problem anyway. Then we will just save that, jump back to our other screen, and it would be browse and import that file. So and we just hit that import and it'll all come through. So that's how we import chart of accounts. If you ever need to do that, usually it's on setup anyway, and it does pull through that normal chart of accounts. The normal process would be jump into it and add the accounts as need be. But just in case you ever do use this function or you are importing from another accounting software, this is where you do it. Now, as a little bonus, what I'm going to do, I'm not actually sure if you guys have the access to this chart of accounts library, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a link in the email. After this video, you'll see it, that has all of these templates in there. So you can see that it's just got general company, no GST, agriculture, because a lot of things are different in the agriculture industry here in Australia. Same with non-for-profit. Things like partnership, sole trader, trust accounts, the Xero hand, that's just Xero's master file that they've got there as well. So I'm going to add all of these in case you guys don't have access to that, because this is obviously going into my account. So you guys have access to all of those templates if need be.